Well, the book Life is Like That sometimes draws readers into the unforgettable personal experiences that have shaped the world of author Khaya Dlanga. It is filled with anecdotes, including a 2 million rand gwinya, or vetkoek, his grandfather's died horse, and many awkward encounters. It's also a journey of love, of sadness, forgiveness, and facing life's hardships. Now, while the stories in the book are deeply personal, Dlanga says they are reflections of the lives of millions of South Africans, and the man is in studio with us, Khaya Dlanga, to talk about it. What a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long time since I've been in these studios.
I know, I know,
Yeah.
I know. I've been waiting for you for all this time to come. This book of yours, obviously it's not the first one you've done, but this one feels, I might be wrong, like the most personal of the lot.
Oh, definitely. It's certainly the most profound personal one.
Yeah.
And I think probably towards the end, that's where it gets really, really personal.
Gosh.
And even I suppose at the beginning, maybe there's a bit of a slight personal introduction, but then at the end it just goes.
Yeah, tell me about it,
very
because
deep.
I've just literally read the last paragraph, and I promise you, I've read the whole thing. So I hit the end, and I'm not very happy at the moment. So as much as I want to bring the humor out in how much is covered in here, it sort of has been overshadowed by the realness and the reality of so many people that have been in your position, and it's saying goodbye to a brother, saying goodbye to a mother. These are the freshest. Obviously, you've said goodbyes throughout the book, but this was tough. Was this kind of like, I know you talk a lot about therapy through the book, but was this your therapy to write it down?
Definitely. I actually feel that this helped me a lot more than any therapy that I went to, writing about it, writing about my brother's, passing, and my mother's passing. Those, I remember when I was writing it, and sometimes I felt like I was on the verge of tears, or sometimes I'm just wiping the tears as I'm writing, because you almost relive it, but there's a relief in reliving those moments again, if that makes sense, because it's like now I feel like I've had real time to digest them when I put them into words, and while writing the grieving process.
So I want to talk to people about the first of your brother, because I just think these lessons are so important to people out there, because if there's one thing about somebody that has lost a person that they love to suicide, because that is eventually what your brother did, having gambling addiction and then overdosing. But the letter he left you, I think, explained it all, because if I've ever heard from a lot of people, it's just saying that I wish I could have done things differently. I wish I could have said something, but from his mouth, it was almost reassuring that no matter what you did, it was not going to ever change it.
And that was very difficult to accept. And it was so final, and it looks scary, when you read somebody that you're so close to, that you spend so much time with, and where, the suicide note essentially said something like that he knows that I did everything I could have done, and that I've done more than a brother should have in the first place. And he knows that we love him, and he wants us to feel pain one last time and not feel the pain ever again. And I remember, of course, reading this, thinking that, like, why would you think that, like, you feel pain once and never again? But emotional pain is kind of, it lives with you for quite a long time. But at the same time, even though it was a relief to feel that he wasn't blaming anybody, it was still difficult to accept. It's so tough. It's so tough. And as your brother's saying, this is the last time you'll feel pain. I think perhaps the reality is that this is just a pain that'll never ever leave you. It will never be the last time, ever. But perhaps maybe just that little note of knowing you did your best, and everyone did their best. But when you have this illness, and it is an illness, because it just seems to be something that is getting worse and worse, and that's that gambling illness that, people just actually don't know how to control it. It takes over you, and you think that's the only way out. And what's crazy as well, I think, for me about gambling is that his therapist actually called me after my brother took his life, maybe like a month or 2 months afterwards. They called me, and they said that your brother said that, I can speak to you. We can talk about everything that we spoke about. And the one thing that he then said was that out of all addictions, gambling is the one that leads to suicide the most.
Wow.
Which was kind of crazy to me. I had no idea.
No, I didn't know that.
It feels like this silent kind of addiction that nobody knows.
Sure.
We know all, like we talk about all other addictions, but that one we just seem to
that
neglect.
hit hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's almost like, that got me. And then I move on to your mother. And then I thought that I'd ended my heartbreak, and then it just got worse, because when we get to the point of a mother losing a child, and your mother really voicing it at his funeral through your voice. She wrote the letter, as is tradition and customary, and then you stood up and read it, and I mean, it was almost like this was just saying, you know, as a parent, well, as we all know this, the parent should never ever bury a child. But this was sort of it was a final thing for her, where it was, she almost predicted that she was going to go.
Oh, it was hectic, because like on the day, you know, of my brother's funeral, I mean, when it's just myself and my sisters and my mother, I mean, she kind of said this out loud, I mean, almost quietly, but to herself, but obviously within the room. And when she said, "Next year I'm going to die,"
Sure.
and I remember being so angry and mad at her, and saying that, why would you say that you're gonna die? Like, why would you say this? And a few weeks, you know, then what I did after that is that I would literally just FaceTime call her all the time, just to make sure that, you know. And then when a year passed by, I was like, oh, phew, okay, her prediction hasn't come through. But then she was just got sicker and sicker, and then about 3 years later, she actually did die.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was like a prediction that, like, I mean, I often call it was a prophecy that she summoned on herself, because she was so heartbroken that she lost her youngest son. And I think that was like a very, very difficult thing for her to accept, that like, how can her youngest son die like that?
Sure.
And she couldn't reconcile, I think, the suicide and all of those things.
Yeah, it's so difficult. But, you know, I don't want to bask on that too much, because this is obviously what the book is. It builds up to that. But that's not what it's all about, because, you know, there's so many funny nuances throughout the book, and only in Khaya true style, because in a way you do share all of this on social media, and you talk about your culture, where you come from, the different traditions and all of these kind of things, which are beautiful. And you share it with us. And in a way, you shared this, but not as in depth as what I've realized in the book here, because now we're really seeing the rawness. Sharing on social media, even though we all criticize it and have been warned not to share on social media, do you still enjoy it? Is it still okay for you?
I think for me it's still okay. It's like I don't know if I enjoy it, but I feel that I am part of that world. So therefore I live in it. And I mean, like, when you're talking about, you know, me sharing, I remember, like, when my brother passed away and I shared that for the first time on social media, the number of people who sent me private messages saying that they were so happy that I actually spoke out about suicide, about the fact that there was suicide in my family, and they talk about how they were ashamed in their own families, that no one was saying it. Even at the funeral, no one would admit that, like, a family member had, you know, died by their own hand. And they said it made them kind of get some kind of closure and courage. And I found that pretty interesting, because it's not something I expected from people, because I don't think that we need to feel shame when a member of our family takes their own life. And I'm saying that, like, you know, when I talk about sharing on social media, is that, you know, sometimes positive things like that come out, where people feel like your sharing gives them some springboard, you know, to deal with their own emotions that maybe they are grappling with.
Very much so. And another thing, I mean, there were two sections, I know, for social media, and this was a while ago actually. You spoke about gambling, and and people were sharing stories about what happens in casinos and what happens in this online gambling world. And my eyes were like this, and I knew it, but I hadn't heard real life stories, and it really shook me. So I understand what you're saying. Another thing that I loved, you're so open and honest about therapy, because, you know, you tried to get your brother to go, you've been again and again, and you know, a lot of people also, especially coming from, you know, rural areas with like, what? I must go talk to someone? That is such a white thing to do. And you say that, that's why I'm quoting you before I get into trouble. But it really is. But you speak about it, you endorse the fact that you can't be in control of everything.
No,
and reaching out for help is a good thing to do.
And it's a good thing. And I'll never forget, someone I think said this to me, that, you know, you take your car for a service, there's certain things, but for some reason, your mind and your brain, something that you use all the time, why don't you go take that for a service? Because that's what therapy is. When you go to therapy, it's service for your mental health. And I was like, that is brilliant. And I was like, well, I'll be proud. You know, I'll go and set myself out and go to therapy, because there's no shame in it. But also, it's like, for me, it's like finding the right therapist is like dating. You actually have to, go to a few therapists before you find the right one for you. And then, like, okay, this is my therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree with you. You need to, the last person you want to sit in front of someone you really don't like and talk to them about your deepest, darkest problems. I don't think you want to do that. Just as we wrap this up, I mean, the book also, it begins as a little boy where you're living in the village. With your grandfather, and you explain what an amazing man he was, and when you first you encountered death, and this was through your father, that no one told you, as is customary, but you remember hearing people crying, and it brought back memories to me. I remember the same thing happening when one of my grandparents passed away. No one necessarily told us, but I just heard so much crying in the house, and I thought, why is everyone crying? And that was my first introduction to the sadness of death. And that hit you again later on.
So, I mean, I think I think these pictures behind me.
Is this your house, by the way?
This is my grandparents' house.
Is that where you grew up?
This is where I grew up.
Oh,
but obviously no one lives there anymore.
How beautiful, you lucky person you. So, imagine waking up to that.
And we're playing, like, all the grasses, with the kids were playing there. And all the adults were called into this other house, the one on the left. They were all there. We didn't know what was happening. And then we just heard them crying. And, I mean, I didn't know anything that was happening. But later on, obviously, we got, I mean, I'm assuming someone whispered, because, I mean, traditionally, if you're a child, I was 6 years old, if you're a child, someone whispers into your ear while you're sleeping to tell you that, like, your father or your mother or your grandparent has passed away, because they say that it's easier on the child to kind of pick that up. And I literally, as I say in the book, I worked it out over time. That, hey, everyone keeps talking about this man, that, oh, he used to be like this, he was funny. And I realized they always speak about him in the past tense. And then someone realized, maybe about 2 years later, that, like, oh, I think this man they were talking about is my father.
Was my father, and he's no longer. Oh, man. I could speak to you all day about it. I really could, but I don't want to give it away, because here it is. Here's the book. You can get it. It takes you into another world. Khaya Dlanga. I've been in his world for a while reading this, and I'm also looking at the outhouse, wondering about the toilet paper that you never had. But anyway, that's a story for you to go figure out. From having no toilet paper to selling his pillow to other people to living the life of luxury in Los Angeles. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Khaya Dlanga, author of the book Life is Like That Sometimes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.